Okay, so we're holding here in the Gemara, Mishnah, Daf, Chav Dalet, Amud Aleph, 24a, just a bit past the halfway mark of the page. We're holding here the second Mishnah, Hamaftir ben Navi, second Mishnah on the page. This Mishnah will be discussing who can be a Chazzan in Shul. There's a lot of criteria, and we're going to go through them in the Mishnah today. So first of all, Hamaftir ben Navi hu Tiferes al Shema. The one who concludes the Navi, meaning the one who receives the Haftarah, it is best to honor them to be Chazzan as well. Another understanding, Rashi says, is that the one who is the usual teacher in the shul, so it means someone who's familiar with the entire Nach, and in the shul, they would usually call on him, or very often, in order to teach, or in order to say the Haftarah. So the Chachamim, the sages said that such a person, he should be the one to be the leader for Shema. There you see there's a drawing or a picture in the Rebbe's room. There's a minyan, and they're all saying Shema. But when we're saying Tiferes al Shema over here, we explained in the previous Mishnah, it was that if 10 people daven individually Shacharis without a minyan, it could be Ma'ariv as well, but generally Shacharis. So then, when they get together, they say the blessing, one of the blessings of Shema before, say Shema, and the blessing of Shema after, and then they say Chazaras Hashatz, the first three blessings of Chazaras Hashatz, repetition of the Amidah, and they answer Kedusha, and then they finish. It's called Tiferes al Shema. Explained that it's not very common today. So if you have 10 people who gather together, didn't daven, you're looking for a Chazzan to lead them. The one who should lead them is because it should be the one who is usually the one who says the Haftarah in Shul, and because it's an honor to be Chazzan. Unlike many places today where you have to look for a Chazzan, a volunteer for a Chazzan, or unfortunately there's a chiyuv, and they're Chazzan the entire year. It's actually a big kavod and honor to be a Chazzan, and it's therefore proper and respectful. You should give the Chazzan to someone who is baki, who is honored and respected, someone who knows the Navi. In addition, the hu oiver lifnei hateva, a person who is knowledgeable in Nevi'im, in the prophets, he is also honored to be a Chazzan for the repetition of Shemona Esrei. There are some places where there's one Chazzan who davens for the leading everyone until Shemona Esrei, and for the repetition you have someone else. And such a person who is knowledgeable in Nach, he's also worthy to be the one to lead the repetition of Shemona Esrei. And if he is a kohen, he would be the one to do Berchat Kohanim. Nowadays, when we do the blessing of the Kohanim, every single kohen goes up to the front of the shul to do the duchening, to do the leading of the Berchas Kohanim, as long, of course, as they're eligible to do it. If a kohen is married to a divorcee, or something else which would disqualify them from being a kohen, so then they cannot receive the aliyah of kohen, and they cannot do duchening. If you don't know, you don't have to ask. It's only if you know clearly. Then the custom was, in the time of the Mishnah, that you would have one kohen who would lead the shul for the entire Birchas Kohanim, and all the Kohanim would repeat after him. So according to another opinion, is a ritva. There's a lot of Rishonim over here on this Mishnah, or to mean that he would lead the Kohanim and then the Kohanim would repeat after him, meaning there wouldn't be, like today, we have the Chazzan, one in Shul, who's not a Kohen. He says the Birchas Kohanim, the word, and all the Kohanim follow him. So then they would have one person, one Kohen leading everybody else. So either one of these two things, either one Kohen would bless everyone, or one Kohen would lead the other Kohanim. So if the person who does maftir, does the haftorah and shul, he is also a Kohen, he should be the one to lead the Kohanim in Birchas Kohanim. And if he was a minor means somebody who is under 13 years old, and he cannot be Chazzan. So although the haftorah could be read by a child, someone who's Yassi, Shalom Aleichem. How are you, Yassi?
Hello, Rabbi. I'm good. Thank you for asking.
Yeah.
How are you?
Baruch Hashem, every day is a special day, and especially today when I see with you, it's a very special day.
Thank you, Rabbi. Thank you. Good seeing you.
The haftorah is allowed to be read by a katan, by someone who is not 13 years old, a minor, as long as they know how to read. However, a katan, a child, cannot be a chazan, cannot lead the Shemon Esrei, cannot lead the congregation, cannot be the Bakare, the one who reads the Torah for everyone, unless maftir. So if the maftir, the one who gets a haftorah, is a child under 13, although he might be fluent in the haftorah, he might be fluent in Navi, he cannot be chazan, and then Avivei Rabbi Eivrin al Yadai. So then his father or his teacher, they could be the chazan, they are the chazan instead of him, because he is not qualified to lead. But the Mishnah is teaching us is that you might think that if the son is the chazan, you would think it's like the father is being chazan, or if the student is a chazan, it's like the teacher is being chazan, and therefore maybe the child could be chazan, because everything a child knows generally it's from his teacher, from his father. Few are the children under bar mitzvah who are able to know much more, know the Navi without having learned it from an adult, or being tested by an adult, being taught by an adult. So if he can't do it, so then his father or his teacher do it in front of him. The fact that the Mishnah mentions that his father or the child's teacher are chazan instead of the child for these particular things, which is leading, being a chazan in shul or doing Birchas Kohanim, means that in other things a child is allowed to do it. And there's a disagreement among the poskim if a child is allowed to do the next few things, which the Mishnah is going to list off as well. Let's continue the Mishnah. Katan, a child who is not yet bar mitzvah, however, they're old enough to understand what they are saying in Tanakh. You could have, they have every year in Israel, it's called the Chidon HaTanakh, the Tanakh contest. And sometimes they'll have a child who's just very gifted, and they are the Alufa Tanakh, I think it's called. They are the one who is, but many children know Tanakh very well. So a katan kaireh b'Torah, a child halachically is allowed to receive an aliyah and to be called to the Torah. We previous Mishnah we discussed this. Previous blot we discussed this, saying that some opinions say that only after Shlishi, after the third aliyah, when the majority were adults, and in general we don't do it today because of kavod hatzibur, honor for the shul, respect for the shul, saying that no one in the shul knew how to read the Torah, and we needed a child to read the Torah. It's a shame, it's an embarrassment for the shul. So a child does not read the Torah except for maftir. However, halachically, Since the reading of the Torah is not one of the 613 mitzvahs of the Torah, the 613 mitzvahs of the Torah and the 7 mitzvahs that are abundant, the 7 rabbinical mitzvahs, like reading the Megillah, etc., these mitzvahs have to be done by an adult. However, a child is not obligated in mitzvahs, will only do it for chinuch, for education. Listening to the reading of the Torah, or reading the Torah for everyone, is not a complete mitzvah. Rather, it's that everyone should hear, should learn Torah. You can't go 3 days without learning Torah. And although a child is not obligated to learn Torah, because a child under 13 does not have to do any of the mitzvahs of the Torah, and therefore his level of obligation, which is chinuch, education, is much less of an obligation than anybody else. And usually, if you don't have the same level of obligation, you can't do it for an adult. When it comes to reading the Torah, the main thing is to learn the Torah. And a child could teach Torah to everyone else. I know certain shows where they call up a child to give a Dvar Torah on Friday night. I had a bunkmate in when I was in camp from Bel Air, California. And he was one time so inspired after camp, he wanted to do more in his Chabad house by his minyan. And he decided that every Friday night he wants to be Chazzan until for the beginning of Kabbalah Shabbos until after L'Chadoidi. And then anyone could lead. There's no Kaddish, there's no Kedusha, there's no Baruch Hu. I mean, the first in Kabbalah Shabbos, in the beginning of Friday night. And that's what he started doing every Friday night. He would lead, he would be the Chazzan. He was 10 years old. He would be Chazzan from the Chunaran and until after L'Chadoidi, and he would lead everyone in singing L'Chadoidi. Next time he met his father came and spoke for us. He said that since then, the attendance to Hebrew school doubled. All the parents who come to shul Friday night, they said, this boy could lead the entire shul in davening, 10 years old, and our son can't. And they all sent their kids to learn Hebrew and Hebrew school. Now, children, of course, could teach Torah. And many times, people will pay attention to children or more than adults. So when it comes to reading the Torah in shul, it's more of an idea of the reason why we read the Torah is that you shouldn't have more than 3 days going by without somebody learning Torah. So Monday, Thursday, and Shabbos, we hear the Torah. And therefore, a child is allowed to read the Torah. And halachically, if they did it, you should rehear it again, but you still have fulfilled your obligation. You should rehear it again for an adult. A child cannot count for the minyan, so you need 10 people there. If a child cannot count for the minyan, a child cannot count he preferably should not get the aliyah, but if he did, it's all right. Because the main thing is to learn Torah, and the child can read the Torah out loud. The order of the Mishnah says, Aviv or Rabbi, his father or his teacher, because one has to honor the father more than your teacher. Because a father, you have different sayings in different places. Some say that you have to honor your teacher more because your father brings you into this world, your teacher brings you into Olam Haba, the world to come. But over here, it's a schus, it's an honor. And for the father is, let's say, God forbid, the child will pass away, anything which the child owns will go to the father, it will not go to the teacher. If a child finds something on the street, it goes to the father. And when it comes to honoring, for example, if your father and your teacher are walking together, you first have to honor your teacher and then your father. That's because if they're coming together. However, over here, we're talking about when you're reading the Torah, so his father comes, a father could read the Torah, he does it before the child. And as well, as we said before, you had a translator, someone who would translate verse by verse, every pasuk, You have someone reading the Torah, and the next, after you read one verse, you have a translator translating into Aramaic. So the child is allowed to be the translator because the translation is not part of the actual Torah reading. And therefore, if a child is doing it, it's not disrespectful or dishonoring everybody, dishonoring the shul. The Rif explains, and Rashi over there brings it, that the reason is a little bit different because you're not being called up for an aliyah. The translator is not being called to the Torah, he's standing in his place. Being a Chazzan, you have to walk up to the front of the shul. And if a child walks to the front of the shul and leads everyone, Baruch Hu and Kedusha, could be a disrespect for everyone. However, if a child is reading the Torah reading, he says he could be standing in one place. And it's not as disrespectful. Of course, halacha is a child does not read the Torah at all. He could read the maftir. A child cannot be the Chazzan for even Shema, right? Which is a hat when 10 people who already daven get together just to answer Baruch Hu, Shema together, and Shemon Esrei. The child cannot be Chazzan for that. And for sure, and he cannot pass in front of the ark, meaning he cannot be a Chazzan for Shemon Esrei as well, because he's not obligated to do it. And therefore, a Chazzan, if someone enters into the Chazzan, it's like they themselves said it. A child is not obligated to daven from the mitzvah of davening, rather from the mitzvah of chinuch, of training. And therefore, he cannot be a Chazzan. It's a obligation, unlike a Torah reading, which is not a mitzvah from the Torah, but rather a idea that one should learn Torah. The einay noisei eskapav. And if a child is the only kohen in shul, he cannot be the one to do berachas kahanim, to bless the entire congregation in the shul. He cannot do it. Two different reasons are given. One is that it's not respectful that everyone should have to listen to a child. And that's the reason Rashi on the page over here gives. The Rimi Lunil, he comes from a city in France called Lunil. France, I think now it's part of Belgium. And he says the reason is because a child is not obligated to do berachas kahanim. It's one of the 613 mitzvahs of the Torah that the kohanim have to bless the people, and the child is not obligated to do the mitzvah. Now we have this guy called the pecheach. Maybe Yossi could confirm. A pecheach, I think in modern Hebrew, is like a thug or a street guy. But let's say this guy will be a pecheach. Pecheach could be either mean sleeveless, or I brought up different this picture. Where was it? Oh, closed it already. Or someone who's barefoot, or someone with shorts, and you could see his knees. That's called a pecheach. So a pecheach, you could see either his knees, or he's barefoot, or you could see his sleeves. So it's not respectful for him to read the Torah. However, Tiferes es Shema, he is allowed to be the Chazzan. So it wouldn't, particularly as someone who's wearing shorts, or you could see if they're going barefoot. So these people are not allowed to lead Shema. Alter Rebbe adds on a pecheach, someone who is sleeveless as well. Alter Rebbe adds it on the Shulchan Aruch. They're allowed to be Chazzan because he's obligated to be a Chazzan, and he has to. And since he's obligated, someone else could be fulfilling your obligation. A Peres al Shema is different. You will not stand by the Chazzan place. You stand in your own place and be Chazzan from there. So since you're standing in your own place, you wouldn't be standing in the front of the shul. So then it's respectful for them. It's not really disrespectful for the congregation, because many people, you're not looking at the front at the Chazzan. Umetargem, and he can also be the translator to translate the Torah reading into Aramaic, verse for verse, because he's not the one reading the Torah. It's not such a high position. It's not so important to read the Targum, the translation, as it is actually reading the Torah. And therefore, even though he's not dressed in a way that's respectful of the shul, still, he's allowed to do it. He's not disrespecting everyone. You're not giving him the position of Chazzan or Balkore over here. Avol, Eine Koire B'Torah. He cannot be the one to read the Torah. So I have to bring up this picture today. This is the Rebbe having a small minyan right outside of his Rebbe's room. Rebbe having a small minyan for Torah reading, Kriyas Torah on that day. So a pecheach, someone whose limbs are exposed, either wearing shorts or sleeveless, they cannot be the one to read the Torah. It's not respectful to have an open Torah in front of him when he is dressed like that. The Eine Oiver Lefnei Teva, and he cannot be the one to repeat Shemini Esrei or to say Kaddish. It's not honorable for him to do it in that time. The Eine Noisei Eskapov, and if he is a Kohen, he is not allowed to lift his hands to recite Birchas Kohanim, because it is also disrespectful, because people look up to the front, and disrespectful to everyone who is in the shul and looking at the Kohanim, at least in the beginning of the blessing, and it's not proper. Interesting halakha about a katan, a child. What is the halakhic definition of a katan, of a child, a minor? Most of us think 13 years old. There's other opinions. In the Gemara, Mishnah, it says you need 2 cyrus, at least 2 hairs grown in private places, 2 fully grown hairs. And that's what it means, a gadol. But the age of 13, generally a boy already has 2 hairs grown, and you don't have to check. But if you know that he doesn't have yet 2 hairs, then he shouldn't be chazan yet. The Rambam writes, interesting thing. What is a gadol? He gives a different definition. Rambam to Megillah 8. Here we go. The Rambam's definition of what is a gadol is Aleph. Ein emanim shliach tzibor el gadol shebetzibor b'chachmasei v'masav. A chazan should only be someone who is a person of a great stature within the community, in knowledge, in wisdom, and in good deeds. And if he was an elder, a person, it's more praiseworthy, it's more respectful. And an effort should be made, someone which has a pleasant voice and is familiar with the davening and the verses in davening. And then this is what he says a chazan should be, a gadol. Umi shelenismale zekanai, a person who does not have a full beard, afapishu chacham gadol, even if he's a great Torah scholar, lo yehei shliach tzibur, minei kavod tzibur. He should not be the chazan, as a gesture of respect to the chazan, to the congregation. Once he reached the age of 13 and he has his signs of physical maturity, so then he's allowed to be chazan for the Paris Shema, which is like the chazan from your place, as opposed to a chazan of in front of the shul. So according to the Rambam, what constitutes a gadol, an adult, is someone who has a full beard. Some say that the means an age, So, for example, you had some people which are physically incapable of growing a beard, but they're the age where they're able to grow a beard. So then they said that as long as he has the other qualifications of he's full of knowledge and he's a pious person, then he could be a Chazzan. But a beard, of course, is very, very important. The beard is idea of you're committed to Hashem wherever you go. There was the reason why the Torah says you're not allowed to shave your beard, definitely with a razor, is because that was copying the non-Jewish priest. And even if there's no prohibition, of course, there's a seer, there's a godly form which is on a person's beard and brings down a lot of brachas. In a place where the custom is, where nobody grows a beard, so in such a place where they were brought up in such a way, then it's not a deterrent against serving as a Chazzan, because it's sort of an accepted practice over there. There's in 770 or many shows they're only given aliyah or somebody who has a beard. I brought up an interesting picture. Here is somebody named Zalman Jaffe. Zalman Jaffe. He is, if you know the Greenwalls, there was Shmuel Lu, his father-in-law, his grandfather. So there's Zalman Jaffe, very interesting person. I think he was actually wealthy, at least most of his life. And he was about the age of 40 when he first got connected to the Rebbe. But since then, he became completely connected to the Rebbe in a tremendous manner. And he's one of the people who had the most kiruvim. The Rebbe brought him. The Rebbe was close to him, brought him close more than most people. And he did not have a beard till Tafshin Nun, till 1990. And when he finally grew a beard, it was Zalman Jaffe in his later years. He would never recognize him. Just see Zalman Jaffe. Zalman Jaffe in his later years. So this is Zalman Jaffe. You see, going by the Rebbe, receiving a lulav and esrog from the Rebbe. Then, a couple years later, Zalman Jaffe already had a full beard, and he received a beautiful letter from the Rebbe, telling him, here's Zalman Jaffe a couple years later, right, with a full beard going by the Rebbe since 1991. And the Rebbe wrote a special letter that I'm very glad to see with the Samach Pei Yud, Sever Panim Yafas, with a shining countenance. But for example, he had a very loud voice. He was a Chazzan, and there was like no issue of him being a Chazzan, being cats. In Lubavitch, they weren't as strict on it. Other places, they were very strict on it. In Lubavitch, at least, to be Chazzan, they were not so strict on that thing. That the Chazzan has to have a beard, as long, it was somebody who was an Erlich person, someone who grew up with it. But definitely, you see, it's covered at Tzibor, it's honor of a Tzibor congregation that the Chazzan should have a beard, and according to the Rambam, that is what constitutes a gadol, an adult. So even a 13-year-old should not be Chazzan, according to the Rambam. You should wait till they're older, till they're say 16, or the age of when, or the person has a full beard, or they're the age where definitely the person does have an entire beard. The Magen Avram and the Beis Yosef bring us the Chatchila, and they say you cannot be Megillah, you cannot be lenient in this regard. And although the Beis Yosef writes, Beis Yosef Shulchan Aruch, he writes that if everybody wants to be lenient, allow someone who does not have a beard to be a Chazzan, he could be. The Taz writes that you cannot, if you're allowed to forgive your own honor, but the honor of Hashem you can't forgive, and therefore they cannot say that someone without a beard is allowed to be Chazzan. But we do see from all of this that it's a very important thing, and it's an idea of kavod and honor to have a full beard according to the Torah. That is the idea of honor, the idea of brachas, of blessings. There was a certain individual. He had a full he was, you could say, returnee Baal Tshuva, but he returned to Yiddishkeit. And he had a full beard, and then he went for a job interview looking for a job. And it was a very promising job interview, and he went. And he felt he didn't make a good impression. And he felt that it was because of his beard and the way he looked too religious. And he was invited back for a second interview, but he felt like it didn't go. So he decided, I know I'm told that Parnasa comes because of my beard. He decided not to do it. He decided he's going to cut his beard anyways. He shaved his beard, and he came back for the second interview, and the same interviewer was there. And he walked out of the room, and he came back a minute later, told him, I think we actually made a mistake. He said, what happened? He says, our company says we're looking to hire, besides for people that are qualified, but we have diversity, meaning we want also to show that we hire all types of people. So we're Jewish people and all people. So you look visibly Jewish, and that's even though we had more qualified candidates than you, but you looked Jewish. That's why we want to hire you. But now you don't have that look anymore. And so we don't want to hire you anymore. And it's a definite thing that only brachas and blessings come as a result of a person growing their beard, and the beard comes in. Let's continue. It's 11:39. We'll pause over here at the Gemara. Next time we'll do Gemara Mesechta Monday. Tomorrow will be Mesechta with Rabbi Darren at 11:40 at 10:30. But the next Gemara we'll continue on Monday talks about the idea of a blind person. Could a blind person say Shema? Okay. Continue now with Kuntres Umayan. We're holding at the very end of Kuntres Umayan, where we're coming to the conclusion of the entire sefer, of the entire book. And the Upnei Kol Zeh, Efshar Aleches Apidas V'Cheshbon V'Tzedek. The Yetzer Hara is very crafty, and the Yetzer Hara always looks for the weak spot, and that's where it attacks. Some people it says you can't leave your wife and children, you can't daven with a minyan. Some people it says you have to work. Some people it tells you you don't have koyach, strength. Some people it says I'm just not built like this. Yetzer Hara for some reason doesn't deter people when it comes to enjoying themselves. When it comes to stopping a person from doing a mitzvah, Yetzer Hara has many different tactics. And in Kuntres Umayan, we spoke how all of these tactics are completely sheker, they're delusions or falsehood. And the reason why a person is false prey to the Yetzer Hara is because of their natural state of being. Naturally, they are unrefined. And the more you eat, the more you drink, the more you get involved, the less sensitive you become. What were you so a person's head over heels in their business, and they don't have time for davening properly. And because they are extremely busy with all of these things, the Yetzer Hara played with a person, and it has moved him away from the path of the true way. And he was not able to follow his wisdom and make a regular calculation because his Yetzer Hara is strong, it's powerful, and he couldn't get himself to win. It was a formidable opponent. If you let the terrorists regroup, They're going to get stronger and get harder to conquer next time. As it says in Tanya, chapter 13, that if you don't keep your Yetzer Hara in check, it's just going to get stronger. Because as time goes on, Yetzer Hara becomes stronger. When a person eats and drinks just in a regular way, he gains strength. Yetzer Hara brain gains strength because the nefesh bahamis, the animal soul, is very equated with the Yetzer Hara, and you're feeding it every time you eat and drink. When a person comes to something which he is very excited about, then he becomes overwhelmed, because in his mind it's a huge importance. It's so important, and he forgets everything, and he reacts with an animal response. He loses all types of rational response when a person is overwhelmed. And then he could have also very weak godly instincts. His neshama becomes very weak, non-sensitive. As it says, tukva the gufa chulshad nishmasa. The strength of the body is a weakness for the neshama. Although the Megillah is which says that a hole in the body is a hole in the neshama, that's talking about not letting your body deteriorate. But the nefesh bahamis, the animal soul, the idea of the animalistic part of your soul, if you strengthen that, that's weakening the neshama. Right? For example, adding on, making sure to have the good food, the best food, always at the right time. These type of things, being so careful about that these are things which weaken your sensitivity to the neshama. And therefore, a person could have a hard time going in the way of the godly soul. So what is the way to overpower your nefesh bahamis, your animal soul? Here's the advice. Nisgaber ala ruach shtus the Yetzer Hara. To win over the Yetzer Hara's extremism. That's to become a bigger extremist than the Yetzer Hara. Which is gabri kari, strengthen yourself like a lion. Don't try arguing with the Yetzer Hara. Do exactly the opposite without any reasons whatsoever. And without making a calculation, to do it with tremendous strength, and to go out with bravery and strength. And if there's something where a person is very involved in, you should do the exact opposite. So I know I cannot miss my 10 o'clock news at night, and to go force himself to be busy with something positive during that time. And don't start thinking, what's going to be with me, what's going to be with this, what's going to be with that. And it might seem hard, but you have the power to do it, because you have an neshama. And an neshama means that you have the essence of your soul. And by virtue of being born Jewish, converting Jewish, you have a godly soul. And this godly soul has all the qualities of a Jewish person, which is to do things above understanding, even if it doesn't make sense. This is the idea of we are a stubborn nation. Us Jewish people are very stubborn folk. Yes, in the desert, when we were stubborn, when Hashem gave us so many mitzvahs to try not doing it, but we're also stubborn to not give up the Torah and to not give it up for anything. Shulam aliyusa. So in this respect, Jewish stubbornness, stiff-neckedness, is a very positive thing. And this level is this idea of the stream which goes out from the house of Hashem. Above, in heaven, is the idea of the inner part of Chachma, which in turn is the inner part of Keser. I don't have that chart over here. The Keser, the Chachma, the way it's connected to Keser, meaning going the above the rational faculties of the person. Uvenefesh, so that's what it is in levels, and in this person's soul is Bechinas Etzem Nishmasai Shlamai Lemitam Adas, going in a way which is above understanding and above nature. There was a person named Rabbi Herbert Wiener. He wrote a book called 9.5 Mystics. I think he himself was religious, maybe in his private life, but he was a big rabbi in the conservative movement. And he wrote a book called 9.5 Mystics, and what is a real mystic? I'm sure he was aware of what a real mystic is, a mekubal, but what he would call a mystic, not a mekubal. Not someone who knows Kabbalah, and he interviewed different people, and one of the people he interviewed was a Rebbe. The Rebbe agreed to be interviewed for his book, but that led a very long connection with the Rebbe that he had. And there was one time where the Rebbe told him, he became very close with the Rebbe over the years. The Rebbe told him that you have to get up and make an announcement in a public forum that you are actually a religious Jew. You're not a conservative Jew. I am a religious Jew who keeps the entire Torah mitzvahs. I'm really Orthodox. He said, Rebbe, I can't say that. I can't tell it to anybody. Obviously, the Rebbe knew something he didn't know, and the Rebbe said he has to do it. He was wondering when's the right time to do it. He couldn't get himself to do it. And then there was a dinner where they were honoring him for, I think, 40 years of being, in the rabbinate of the conservative movement. And he was actually he was Reform Rabbi. Yes, Reform Rabbi. And he was being honored. And so at that dinner, he stood up and he announced, I spoke to the Lubavitcher Rebbe, and he told me that everyone should know, I should announce that everyone should know that I'm really a religious Jew. And my entire life I keep religious, even though I serve in the Reform movement, I keep and that was it. He thought that he's going to be attacked, eviscerated, something. Nothing. No one even responded after he gave that speech. And later on, he asked his colleagues, no reaction? So, yeah, we always knew you're a religious Jew. We always knew that. We always considered him to be a religious Jew. When we go in a way of without cheshbonis, without calculations and thinking, and we just do it, we'll see that there's not really so much opposition. But to stop thinking what's going to be, everyone's going to look at me like I'm silly, I'm crazy, I'm going to lose my job, I'm going to lose my respect, I'm going to lose this and that. And we have the ability because we are stubborn and we come from Keser. The Chachma of our Nefesh is connected to Keser. To continue with the topic we were speaking about before, the idea of a beard. There was a yeshiva student who was learning in a non-Chabad yeshiva, literature yeshiva, Lithuanian style, which he was learning. He was truly curious. He learned a lot of Chassidus. And he decided to start growing his beard. And everyone in his yeshiva, all the students started making crazy, you're not allowed to grow a beard. And the teacher is saying, you're not allowed to. You're disrespecting the teachers of some of the Rabbi don't have a beard and you don't. And it was arranged from people who knew him and learned Chassidus with him that he should go into Yechidus by the Rebbe to discuss this. And the Rebbe told him in Yechidus that a beard is a very special thing, and it reminds someone you're visibly connected to Hashem all the time. It says, it could be, the Rebbe says, that there's a person who, when unfortunately nowadays, if someone wants to do something which Torah does not allow you to look at, you don't have to go anywhere. You could do it on your own living room, on your own computer, on your own phone. But back in the day, you had to go to a store, and if you wanted to look at a magazine, you had to go into the back section of the store. If anyone sees you in that section of the store, they know what you're there for. And so the Rebbe told this yeshiva student that it could happen that there could be someone who's a very good yeshiva student, someone who learns a lot of Torah, and if they're looking at something which is not, Torah says you're not allowed to, it's forbidden to look at, something which the Yetzer Hara really pushes you to look at. And when he was standing there, he realized people are going to look at him because he has a full beard, and right away he stopped and he put it down and he left. And Rebbe says, just for him stopping to do something forbidden, one time, and for that itself, the beard is so important. And this Bach was flabbergasted because the Rebbe was telling him a story that happened to him, which he never told anybody about. And no one suspected him that he would do such a thing, God forbid. Right? And the Rebbe was telling him a story that happened to him personally. How important it is. We see the idea of having a beard. There was a friend, I can't say a friend, a couple of years older than me, but he was a shliach. I mean, he's an older student and older bacher when I was a young bacher. And he told me a story that happened to him once. I don't know how it came out once by Fabrengen, but he says that he was learning in yeshiva in Benoit, and it's in France, and he would go in the way of shtus to kedusha, be extremist. He would be the type to stay up the whole night and learn, and he would be a type to go out on Simon and walk back, on Friday afternoon 10 miles because he spent all the extra time putting on tefillin and more Jews. That was his style. And there was one time when there was a big group flight and everyone's going back home for Pesach. And everyone's, the flight's leaving, let's say at 4 o'clock, and everyone's leaving yeshiva, a big bus taking them to the airport at 1 o'clock, or all on the train together. And so they're giving off from 12 o'clock in order to pack their bags. And him, instead of packing, he's crazy. He was like the extremist in the yeshiva. And he decided he's not going to go pack, he's going to learn a mimer instead. And he was learning a mimer of the Frierdiker Rebbe. And his friends looking at him, you don't have to pack. No, I don't have to pack. I'll pack in 1 minute, just being his typical shtick self. And he was the only one in the whole Zal, pretty much sitting and learning at that point. Maybe a few local, French Bachram. And he was learning a mimer in the Frierdiker Rebbe. And in the mimer of the Frierdiker Rebbe, which speaks about how a person has to make the Yetzer Hara, control the Yetzer Hara. And he adds on in Yiddish, the Maimer is Hebrew, a few words in parentheses, Nish kukin was matar nisht, Nish trachten was matar nisht, not to look at what you're not supposed to look, and not to think what you're not supposed to think. And just the words in Yiddish, and they stuck in his mind. Anyways, no one is immune, obviously, unfortunately. It's a constant struggle every day. And he went to the city where he lives, not New York, and he, from his previous days before he went to yeshiva, sometimes he would go to a back of a, one of those stores and look at things that you're not supposed to look at. And as he picked up something and he was looking at something which wasn't a model of a Beis Yaakov girl, to say the least, and suddenly those words of the mimer of the Frierdiker Rebbe came up into his head. Nish kukin was matar nish, nish trachten was matar nish, not to look at what you're not supposed to look at, not to think what you're not supposed to think. And those words suddenly went into his head. It's like, what? He literally learned those words, right? A few days before. And he threw down, he says, whatever he was looking at, he ran out from there, and he never went into there again, Baruch Hashem, in his life. The idea of shtus to kedusha, to break your nefesh bahamis, your animal soul, comes from shtus to kedusha, from being extremist in a good way, and that breaks the extremism, which is very hard to break otherwise, and we have the koyach for it. And let's conclude the entire sefer. This is what it means. A wellspring came out from the house of Hashem and watered the valley of the Shittim. We explained this. The wellsprings, which come from the depths of the ground, which means the power which comes from deep in your soul. It has a power has the ability to overcome the foolishness of the Yitzchok, and to turn it over and to make a foolishness of kedusha. To stand up and to take charge of himself and do opposite of what his natural instinct is. In the specific thing which he is, unfortunately, God forbid, involved in. And if someone acts in the way of extremism, foolishness, of holiness, for a while, a person will weaken their entire physical course being, and his natural instincts will also become weakened, animal instincts, and then he will reveal, and then he will make to become stronger and overpower his godly sensitivity. His spiritual perception will become stronger. And then he can be in a way of holiness, wisdom of holiness. As it says, in every single, wherever you go, you should know Hashem. Even what a person does in day-to-day life, what you need to do in order to live, and when you need to do business for your life, to maintain everything, you should not, God forbid, go after the foolishness of the Yetzirah. He will go follow in God's ways, the true knowledge of God, and go confidently in his way. A summary. Every single Jew possesses the level of the chachma, the wisdom, the deepest part of their soul. And this is the stream which waters the valley of Shittim, all the shtus, all the foolishness, extremism, and one who is ensnared by the Yetzirah must awaken and arouse this strength inside of them. And he has the ability to do opposite of his nature. And with this, he will purify his physical grossness, and he will act in a way of divine intelligence. And chazak, Baruch Hashem. My father was here with us starting. He gave a few shiurim in the beginning of Kunter Shemayim. Now, Baruch Hashem, we made a big l'chaim. Everyone should say l'chaim, whatever you have, bottle of water or something. And Emir Hashem, l'chaim.
L'chaim, Rabbi.
And just so we finish Kunter Shemayim, we should finish many more things.